So what do you think about making our own animated show? I mean, we have this big-ass green screen we don't ever even use. I come to you pre-taped from the Best Coast Show studios. This is the Best Coast Show. I am your host, Albert Aguilera. That is my producer, Curtis Sage. And with us today, we got two very special guests, the creators of the Dewy Show. They bring us epic ragers, Zach Baumgartner, Chris Pavlica.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Guys, thank you very much for coming on our show. This is the first time anyone's actually ever seen their faces, which is outside of their families, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Curtis, what's on our rundown today?
Well, the Dewy Show is back for season 2. Episode 3 is coming out in mid-October, so look for that. We're going to be talking about that today. And then, how did two guys, a guy from Ohio, a guy from South Dakota, end up in LA and start their own animated show? We got to find out how that happened.
Yeah, how does that happen? All four of us, we work in the entertainment industry. You know that most of the people that live in Los Angeles who work in the entertainment industry are transplants. Yeah, you guys are transplants.
Yes.
How did you become Kings fans?
Well, I guess for me, I grew up in Northwest Ohio, so like I grew up a Red Wings fan. I know people are gonna hate that, but I grew up a Red Wings fan. That's all we had, you know. I also grew up going to Bowling Green hockey games, so watched guys like Nelson Emerson play. But always a huge hockey fan. Came from a super small town, not many hockey fans there, period, but my family just loved it. And so anyway, when I moved out here to be in film, it was about the same time my idol Steve Yzerman retired. So there was like a year or two where I didn't really follow hockey much at all and just focused on my career. And then at the end of that, like 2 years, I was like, I got to see some games. So we went down to Staples Center. The Kings were terrible, and tickets were super cheap. They're basically paying us to go to the games. And my wife and I fell in love with watching the team. And, you know, all the players are new then. That's like when Quick shows up, Dowdy shows up. All these guys are super fresh. None of them are from here either. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, it just felt like one of them in a way, both trying to make it in like a place that we didn't come from. And they just slowly started getting better, and we could tell how good they were going to be. And so we've been fans since they were terrible, and Zach can say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
just for the love of hockey.
You and I were probably going to the same games when they were horrible years before
without
we ever met.
Without knowing
exactly.
each other,
years before we ever met. I mean, I played hockey my entire life growing up. It was always in my blood. Loved it. Stopped playing midway through high school. Ended up coming out here to go to USC. And since the 2004 lockout, like the years that I had stopped playing as well, I kind of fell out of the sport for a few years and missed it so much. So I was right down the road from Staples Center at SC, and I started walking down to Staples Center, picking up tickets for $5 or $10, seeing, you know, the same young guys that Chris was just talking about. And by that point in time, I was an Avalanche fan growing up, which is kind of funny that you and I can
so
work
we would have never got along
as well, now, you know, but I was an Avalanche player growing up, and by this point in time, when I was getting back into it, all those greats that I grew up with, Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, I mean, they were done, they weren't playing anymore, and I started looking at this Kings team, and as bad as they were at that moment, I was like, you know what, they got something special here. You know, this might be something pretty cool.
So you adopted them, they became your team, and you know, you mentioned the lockout. The lockout happened when I was in high school, and I had just gotten my driver's license. I was making, you know, milk money. Tickets were dirt cheap, so my friends and I, we'd get out of class and we'd go to the games, and the lockout happened. So we're like, it was the first lockout of my life of any sport in history for me. Like, what do we do? What happens?
Yeah.
And we kind of took a year and a half off, and senior year came along. We started getting back in our cars, leaving and going down to Staples, and that's how it happened a lot, because you guys are from areas where it snows. It doesn't snow here. If we have ice, it's chemical ice. You know, if it rains here, we freak out.
Yeah,
you don't grow up playing hockey in Los Angeles. We have roller leagues here and there, but they kind of just fall to the wayside because there aren't enough people to play. We have soccer leagues, we have baseball leagues, and the culture of hockey is not here because there's no French subculture here. We're not next to Canada. It doesn't snow. I mean, it was difficult growing up, and everyone was by default Kings fan, or everyone grew up in this neighborhood very big Anaheim Ducks fan because of the Mighty Duck movie.
Of course.
That brought in a lot of SoCal kids and introduced them at the time when I was growing up. Wayne Gretzky was still in town. But the transplant motion that you say, a lot of fans here are not Los Angeles Kings fans, right? This is not, quote unquote, a hockey town, but it has become over the last 5 or 6 years. You guys have joined that in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, with the Kings winning 2 Stanley Cups recently, you know, I there's a lot of fans out there that can make the claim of, oh man, we got these bandwagon fans, they're hopping on board. Personally, I'm completely okay with that. I mean, with a sport like hockey, I think it's such a community. That's the way it was for me growing up. It was part of our community. We'd go out during the winters, no matter how cold it was, we'd play pond hockey. So to see, I mean, I've been in LA for over 9 years now, and to see how much hockey has picked up around here, obviously in Orange County, but also in LA as well, I think that's pretty cool to see as well.
Yeah. I think one thing I think is different about hockey fans. Well, first off, I have seen a hell of a lot more Kings logos in the back of cars. Like I've spot a lot more of that.
Winning does that.
Of course,
Yeah.
winning does that.
Especially in LA.
But like Zach's saying, that like I'm okay with it too. It's hard enough to get tickets as it is because I think that hockey fans are just a different group of fans. Anybody can be an NFL fan, and you can kind of get into it because you like fantasy. Like maybe your team's not good this year. You just like to have parties on the weekends. But hockey fans are different. There's something about going to a hockey game, whether it's like you played at some point or you're just a fan or you know the experience of what it's like to put on skates and go out and play. There's just something like spiritual about the game. And I think that the real fans really get that. And that's why it's still hard to get a ticket because even though the fan base is much smaller than other sports, they're so committed
It's
and
more
so
dedicated,
passionate.
yeah, totally.
Like it's just, I don't know, there's just nothing like hockey. And obviously, we think that anyway, but I preach that to everybody. Like if I can just get you to a game and put you next to the glass, you might not know what's going on, but it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah,
Right,
the
so-
energy.
So much so that you created a show about the players on this team. I mean, that's how much commitment, that's how much dedication you have, not only towards the team and your craft, but towards the city of Los Angeles that, in a way, you've adopted each other and is now your home.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Why Drew Doughty? There's a ton of characters on this team, and everyone ends their name with an E. Brownie, Gabby, Dewey,
Yeah.
Kopi. Why Drew Doughty?
Well, I think that's one reason why the show is so successful as well, is there really is an ensemble of characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we love every single episode when we're able to add in a new teammate on the team and get someone else in there because there are all these unique personalities. But for us, I think it was pretty much a given that it had to be Doughty.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the character of all, and then you add on the whole, his partner in crime as well with Trevor Lewis and their friendship that they've had for so many years and living together and everything else like that. It seemed like the obvious pick.
Yeah. When we first started it began with like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if there was some sort of animated series about these like goofy characters? And it started with Dewey because Drew Doughty seems like a total goofball. Yeah. He's super young. He's, again, obviously a transplant. He's got all kinds of money. Like everyone's talking like he's the best defenseman in the world. Yeah. And he's just a total goofball. You see these interviews with him. That's where we get all our stuff. We see interviews with these guys. There's like a house tour that Fox Sports did a few years ago. We watched that, so then we know what it looks like on the inside, those types of things. And like those two guys just seem like the perfect characters to pit against each other, basically partners in crime. And then obviously with Reggie the dog too. It just was a lot to work with. And there's a lot of things that we wanted to say about like the state of hockey or like what we think of these guys. And I think you could take us as like complete fanboys, but really it was just like, hey, let's try out this new animation style, and why not use these characters? We like the Kings, we know a lot about it, and we'll put in all these inside jokes that only Kings fans or even hockey fans would know. Yeah. So it's just something fun for us to do. And like to answer your original question, like Dewey was just like the guy that seems like everybody loves. And he's just a total goof. So he's the guy to show. If there's any Homer Simpson on the team, we figured it's going to be Dewey. Yeah.
And you mentioned this animation style. Your animation style is very unique. How did you come up with that and then apply these personalities? Now when I'm watching your episodes, I'm like, yeah, Quick is a loudmouth sociopath that will murder you if you come inside the crease. Yeah. And that's how he comes off on your show. Dustin Brown hides in the closet to get away from his family because we've seen him in his Toyota commercials and he's got 4 kids, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I apply this. Now these animation styles are very unique. And how did you come up with that? Why did you guys decide, hey, this is what we're going to go with? This looks cool. Because it does. It looks great.
Honestly, it was a very, very fortunate situation that kind of happened. I mean, Chris came up with the idea because for the post-production, a lot of the animation stuff, that's really Chris's forte. And we were originally thinking about doing full animation, body, everything, and we were kind of exploring that. And it's a ton of work, and with more work, it's more time, it's more money, everything. And Chris came up with this idea of, what if we just did live action bodies, and it was kind of like a way for us to avoid the extra money and avoid the extra time, ideally. And then it just ended up, we did a test of it, and it just blew us away because it was this whole new style that we hadn't really seen before, and it was unique, and it just worked so well. Yeah, I mean, it was a really fortunate way that we came to that.
Yeah,
it looks great.
Thank you. One of the first things that was written up about us was from Sports Illustrated online, and it was something about Drew Doughty compared to Homer Simpson, and something about it being really creepy looking.
Yeah.
And we got big smiles when we heard that
great,
because we're like,
yeah.
this is cool. Yeah, and it's actually I brought this up to a couple people, and no one remembers this. There was if you remember back in the early days of the internet before YouTube, there was Atom Films. Remember Atom
Yeah,
Films?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So one of their series that was high up on their list was called Angry Kid. Does anybody remember
yeah,
Angry
yeah,
Kid?
yeah.
I don't.
This is the one that no one remembers.
Yeah.
And what it was stop motion, but it was a real life body and it was a claymation face.
Yeah.
And I've
remember
always
that.
had that in my mind. And for this one, I was like, maybe we just do animated faces on real bodies and shoot on green screen and see what happens. So it worked out.
Now
I'm
you
glad
guys
we did it.
have you guys have never done a show before. Had you done anything like this before on your own? It was your own baby here.
Well, we've never done anything animated before,
Mm-hmm.
but both Zach and I have either worked together or separately on different things, whether it's different TV shows or
Okay.
films or music videos or documentaries. Like we've done a whole bunch of entertainment work together. We both also created TV shows and pitched those around town.
Okay.
So those types of things. So we have some experience, but never in animation. This was just complete goofy passion project. When we did the first two, we're like, we don't know if anybody's gonna watch it. We had 3 goals for it. So remind me if I forget these. But the 3 goals were, well, first off, we don't want it to suck.
Right.
And 2, we hope maybe we get some press. And 3, it would be kind of cool if the players saw it because we don't want them to hate it.
Yeah.
So and then within 12 hours of putting those first 2 episodes up, Puck Daddy did a whole feature on us with an interview.
Yahoo
and
Sports,
Yahoo
Sports
Sports,
Illustrated,
Sports Illustrated,
CBS.
Yeah. Penner retweeted it, and then we ended up getting in contact with him like a couple days later. So we covered all 3 bases that we were worried about in the first 12 hours.
That's great. And so the
And then-
community, the online community, the Hakeem community has taken very well to this then.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've always known, it's a very niche community, obviously. I mean, hockey isn't like the NFL
Right.
or the NBA. They would be a different story if we had LeBron James and Peyton Manning, as characters and stuff like that. But, I mean, this was a very niche community and very niche group, and that's why we could be so specific with these inside jokes. And people picked up on it. I mean, like, really, really specific inside jokes. We thought, people, I mean, and immediately people are commenting about it, talking about it, like, understanding it. It's really neat to see.
And there's a lot of work that goes into animation. We've all seen, the Weekend Life of South Park. They crank something out in 5-6 days, but they have an ensemble cast. They have writers. They have animators. They have millions of dollars. You're 2 dudes in a studio on a green screen that's probably in like your guest house.
Yeah, it was a garage for a
Yeah,
while.
and
Okay,
Now it's
how
garage.
long does it take, begin concept to uploading to YouTube? How long does it take you guys to crank out an episode?
I'll let you try to answer that because I always.
Yeah,
always
I mean,
wishy-washy.
well, there's the process. Obviously it's the idea and the script. The writing. I mean, that's not necessarily super time consuming because we try to keep it short and we bounce ideas back and forth, and then we go into recording the voices, which Chris and I do nearly most of the voices. But we should say a friend of ours, a comedian by the name of Joey Long, he's the one who does Dewey's voice. So he does Dewey's voice, and then some of the other harder
Yeah,
ones
any
that we
specialty
can't
ones
do.
that we can't do.
Like Obama and Sutter and ones like that
Obama was
too.
on the last episode.
Yeah. So typically we can record audio in a day and we can film in a day or 2. I mean, we can get that stuff done in a manageable amount of time, but then Chris goes into the post-production side of things and it's like a whole nother beast on its
I've
own.
seen you guys tweet timelines of what's going on, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of edits. That's like 14 tracks of video and audio and your graphics, and you have to key the backgrounds. I mean, guys, we come out here, we shoot these episodes a couple times a week. We do them in real time. I go home, I can crank this out in about 2 hours, but that's just straight video, straight conversation. That's not the animation that you guys are doing. It would drive me insane. I don't have the time or the patience to try and do animation. People don't get that animation is frame by frame. You have to key everything.
Yeah.
So I assume you're doing a ton of tracking when it comes to putting faces on bodies.
Yeah, it's a lot of tracking. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so you guys have plans to add on any people to the team?
What do you do if someone gets traded in the middle of an episode?
Well, there's that too.
Or we sign someone in the middle, or what happens?
Well, we actually did. We actually did an episode that a lot of our fans know never aired, and it still won't. And actually, that happened in the middle of that. We had a hard deadline to get this episode done, and we had it was an episode about people getting traded out of the blue. And sure enough, 3 days before it was going to air, Yager got traded.
Yeah.
And so we had originally shot him in a Devils uniform, and then we had to switch to a Panthers uniform. And fortunately, Zach had a Panthers uniform at home.
Just
so
randomly.
it's like, all right, I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah, I basically, when I was growing up, whenever my parents would take trips anywhere, they would always come back with
the
hockey
jersey?
jerseys for my brother and I. So when my mom was coming out last year, I asked her, I was like, all those really old child-size hockey jerseys, can you bring those all out? So now I've just got this closet full of the most random jerseys, and sure enough, there was a Panthers one as well. So the sleeves came to about right here.
Yeah.
But really quick, we fired it up and did like the Yager scene.
Yeah, like in your latest episode where Luch is hanging outside of the airport where Quick's coming to pick him up, he's got a Canucks thing on, and he's got his bag, and his bag still has the Bruins logo on it. I'm like, do these guys have a storage closet full of this stuff? It's like you have your own NHL store. You get 5% of use your Discovery card. But I always make sure I do that. Get my promo code. We were talking a few episodes ago about jerseys and how we don't want advertisements on our jerseys, and I was thinking, damn, I spent about $250 on a jersey. I want to buy a jersey of a player who I know is going to be here for 6 or 7 years, and then I was thinking about you guys. I'm like, what if that happens? You're doing a thing. God forbid Drew Doughty get traded, but do you continue the series, or do we say, hey, it's now the Kopi show?
Well, we've been able to make a lot of jokes about it as well. I mean, one of our most recent episode, it's got the little knock on Williams and the fact that he's a Caps, he's on the Caps now, and Dewey throws the dart and it hits Williams, and he's got the Caps jersey on, and Stoll obviously is no longer with the Kings anymore, although he was a character as well. So once we have the faces, we can get a Rangers jersey easily and maybe incorporate that back in somehow too.
Just like us throwing Penner in, we just threw him in an old school Kings jersey, and made it look like he still wants to be part of the team, but he's only got the old stuff.
Yeah.
So what else do we have in store for season 2? We're 2 episodes in, third season's out, middle of October. Season starts in a couple of weeks. What are we looking at season 2 Dewy Show?
Well, we have the last one that came out where he's calling around trying to get his own real show, ripping on it. We really love to rip on ourselves on the show, so we make it look like the web series is total crap. So they need to get a real one. So that ended with to be continued. So we're going to continue that one for this next one. That's the next one. We actually have it all shot. It's all done, but it's now just in the animation hell. But once we get done with that, then we're not sure exactly where we're going to go next. One of the best things about the show is, just like you're saying, players get traded. We don't write all the episodes like a month before the season starts, and that's what we do the whole season. Instead, we just roll with the punches and see what's a topic at the time, and try to see if we can work that in time. So it's a matter of, just like I said, rolling with the punches and see what happens next and see where the series goes.
Yeah, so as you guys walked in, you saw that we were still writing today's episode as you guys were sitting around waiting for us to go. And that's what's so difficult. We are trying to get ready. We do all of LA sports. Last night the Dodgers clinched. We're doing your episode. We had Stephanie come in earlier. And that's the thing with live sports. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. For all we know, some of our players will get hurt tonight or tomorrow, and they'll get traded. Or hey, now we are paying for Richard's cap space, and we can't do something. So it's always fun to have all this new material, but at the same time, it's stressful where we all work in live TV, and you're working in the news, and you have all this stuff prepped, and you're ready to rock, and suddenly high-speed chase, and there's Bailey tweeting. And you're like, all your work for this newscast is down the drain because this asshole decided to steal a car and is driving down the 5.
Yeah, definitely. We were in the middle of working on 2 of the episodes when we decided to switch really quick and do the Milan Lucic one, as well. So, but I think we like that though too, where we try to stay current, with what's going on, because the fans are gonna love. It's always odd for us to say fans, but I guess the few people out there that watch it, they're always gonna love that to hear something that's going on, and then hopefully a few weeks or a month later be able to watch our interpretation of it.
Right, and that's really great. And the thing is, how do you apply these personalities to these characters? Some of the players do follow you online. They follow you on Twitter. They've seen the show. Do you get feedback from them, and where they're like, "Hey, that is me. That is my wife," or "Dude, I don't act like that"?
They don't say a whole lot. We've run into a couple of them before. I know Trevor Lewis. He seemed to be pretty psyched about the show. I think it just depends on if they have a sense of humor or not. But obviously Penner was a big fan, and when we talked to him a bit, he was saying like, how do you guys know this stuff? And John Rosen, LA Kings insider, that was one of the first things he asked, like, who do you know within the organization? Yeah. We don't know anybody. Like, we still don't know anybody.
We get info from you, John.
We get info from his interviews. We see Fox Sports shoots with players behind the scenes, like that kind of thing. And what players tweet. That's another thing. What players tweet also gives us a clue on what's happening. And then, I know one of the things that he loves is we look at what the players tweet from like their houses. If you look at Alec Martinez in the last episode, his background all came from a tweet he put up a year ago when he was watching the NFL, and he had like the Lions down. He's from Michigan. He had the Lions down on his laptop, and he had another game up on the big screen. And it was like between these shelves that had these weird white pots all around it, like these weird white vases everywhere. And I'm thinking, how the hell did that how is this what his place is set up like? So that's what we did, and we just like multiply it. So if you look at that episode, he's just got these white pots everywhere. So,
So you're trolling these guys, essentially.
I mean, kind of. I think it's just called observant. You know, we're
okay.
very
Observing.
observant to what's going on. Yeah.
Observing, I mean, trolling possibly, but I mean, you know, like you look at something like Family Guy, you know, and they'll have like the character of Tom Brady on there, and it's like any type of animation. You take a couple things that you know to be true in real life, and then you just absolutely
exaggerate.
Run with it and exaggerate and elaborate with it. So I know you've referenced the Quick thing several times, and it's like, well, if you're a Kings fan, most likely you've seen during their first Stanley Cup parade when Quick got, you know, he had a few too many
drunk.
drinks,
He was
you know,
drunk.
and then he's up on the stage and he drops I mean, Quick loves to drop the F-bomb. So of course, you know, does he drop it as much as his animated character in the Dewy Show does? I doubt it. Maybe. Yeah, you know,
Maybe he gets mic'd up this year, and we'll know.
Yeah.
maybe.
But you know, it's just one of the or like you said with Brown, you know, it's like Fox Sports, like they do all this like behind the scenes with Brown, and I mean, like his all of his little kids, and you know how hectic it all seems and everything, and
now his wife on that Hockey Wives show, you get a little insight on how she is.
yeah. So there's definitely information out there, and then it's just totally elaborated on.
All right, so we talked season 2. Let's talk Kings' actual season. What's the team going to do this year? How is the team going to perform, assuming they're healthy, we don't lose players for several months for several different stupid reasons?
You know, it's so hard to say. Like it was such a bummer to see Justin Williams go. And I remember when Willie Mitchell left. You know, that was a huge bummer. But it's good to have like all these young guys coming up and see what they do. It seemed like Jim Fox was really loving Michael Mersch last night. So maybe he's gonna step in and play a big role. It's always so hard to tell. We did a podcast with the Blackhawks bloggers not too long ago. That was like 6 months ago. And actually, it was last season, and they were asking like, "How are the Kings going to make the playoffs?" Like, it's so hard to tell because they do this every time, or they just barely get by during the regular season, and then the playoffs is a whole different story. So that's really all it's about. I think it's just making the playoffs and then seeing what happens. So guessing what this team's going to do, you know, if Quick has an awesome year and Doughty does what he's supposed to do, and Kopitar and Brown go back to their normal stats, you know, then I think that we're a feared team. And now, as much as I don't like what Lucic said when he got traded here and how he'd rather be in Vancouver. That interview was all real. A lot of people have been asking, like, that was a real interview.
Yeah.
We didn't appreciate that. That's why we made like basically an emergency episode. Like, we want the fans to know, like, hey, this is the guy that came here. He doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
He says he wants to be in Vancouver. Just so you know, this is who it is. So, but I saw him on the ice last night, you know, in the preseason game, and he's going out there and he's hitting people. You got him, you got Clifford, you got Nolan, you got King. You got these guys who just aren't afraid of anybody, and I think anybody who comes to LA, even though we didn't make the playoffs last year, I think everybody's got to be afraid to playoffs. They have to be.
Yeah.
You're just going to get beat up.
You have a guy like Luch, and he may not want to play here, but these are $1 million athletes, and he's looking for another contract, whether it be here or in Vancouver
Contract
or wherever.
year,
It's a contract year. He wants to perform. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, like
obviously
you said,
want to win. You're a pro athlete. You want to win at the highest level, but it's a dollar figure. So he has to perform here to get any kind of money in Vancouver because he's not 25 anymore.
Of course. I mean, the interview, like Chris said, it definitely upset us a bit, but at the same time, it's not like, I mean, exactly like you just said, it's within his best interest, obviously, to come here still and have a great year. And he's a competitor. Anyone who's a professional athlete has to have an insane amount of competition, you know, inside of them. So, you know, he still is going to come out. He brings a complete new edge to the Kings, I feel like. You know, it's really disappointing to lose guys like Williams and Stoll, but, I mean, having Milan Lucic out there, he's definitely a fierce competitor, and I know, I mean, this year he'll, regardless of what he said in the interview, he'll still bring, you know, some intensity out there no matter what.
I just want to see him throw down. I like that our forwards, unlike forwards on other teams, will drop gloves and throw punches and miss teeth. That's what's really great about a team. It's a very physical team. That's why we're always in.
I mean, incredibly physical team, obviously with a ton of firepower. You know, when you look at Kopitar and Carter and Doughty, all those guys. I think it's weird with the Kings because, you know, they always are kind of you know, like right there on the edge, you know, getting in as an 8th seed, but then rolling through and winning the cup, you know, or going down 0-3 and then coming back and winning it. I feel like if you're a Kings fan, you never really get the impression when they're playing another team like, oh, this is a for sure win for us. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Edmonton or anyone like that. You never really get this, oh, this is a definite win. But then I'm sure if you're a fan of any other team, when your team is playing the Kings, it's also like, oh man, this is a really tough game as well. So it's always kind of teetering right there on the edge, and we'll see. All they have to do is just get into the playoffs because they're definitely built for the playoffs.
Yeah. Albert, do you want to talk about the T-shirt you are wearing today?
Yeah, actually, they were nice enough. Let me drop down my laptop here. These guys were nice enough to bring me a T-shirt today. It's actually a picture of Drew Doughty going, sick! As you guys know from watching the show, that's his catchphrase. And you guys were working with a charity where if people donated to the charity, you guys were sending them these shirts. Tell us about the charity.
Yeah, so first off, thanks everybody for donating of those that did for a shirt. We'll do another run too. It's been pretty popular, so we'll do one more for anybody that missed. But it's a charity that's close to us. I have a friend that I met a few years ago, played softball with him, big sports fan. He lost his brother a few years before that to cystic fibrosis, and his brother's nickname was Big Worm. He was a big surfer guy in San Diego. So actually, while his brother was alive, he started this foundation, and the foundation raises money to help kids with cystic fibrosis who are in the hospital. They bring them gifts. It might be a laptop, it might be a camera, whatever their passions are. It's just to make them more comfortable, give them modern technology. You know, just like I said, make them more comfortable, give them something to do while they're in the hospital, try to brighten their spirits. So that's what this organization does. It's called Big Worm's Cystic Fibrosis Life Foundation, and that's where all the money goes. Zach and I paid for the shirts. We're paying for shipping. All the money that's going directly to the charity. So anybody who's out there coming after for likeness, this is we don't make any money on it. So thank you, Drew, for helping out as well.
How can people donate to this charity?
So they can donate to the charity by searching Big Worms on Google. I think if you just go to bigworms.com, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, we'll have the
Might be-
description.
yeah,
We'll
okay.
have all the information on the description. That way you guys can hit the link and you can go and donate, guys. Second run of the shirts. That way you can pick one up because these are pretty sick.
Yeah.
All right, Albert, what's our gift of the day?
All right, guys. Now we're going to go to our gift of the day. Gift of the day is Lucic punching an Anaheim Ducks player in the face. Hopefully we can keep this fire, this intensity throughout the season. We don't taper off in December, and it'll lead us into the playoffs, and we'll win another Stanley Cup. So that's our episode. Go ahead and stalk us on Twitter at Best Coast Show. This is the Dewy Show. Follow them at the Dewy Show. That's Curtis Stage. You guys have a good night.